Hey guys, Sean from The Good Dog. How are we? Anyways guys, TGD Video Tip. This is the psychological takeover, okay? So this goes out for any of you guys that are struggling with maybe a new dog you've just brought in that's giving you a lot of trouble, or a dog you've had for quite a while that's giving you a lot of trouble. And you're trying to repattern the dog, get the dog into a good space, get the dog to be respectful, get the dog to be polite, get the dog to give his best stuff, and make living with him fun, enjoyable, and not a giant pain in the arse, right? Okay, so the psychological takeover is basically just kind of like a real simple breakdown of the components that we utilize here when dogs come in for our board and train program in order for us to help them shift gears at a pretty rapid clip to help them like really kind of like move into a different mode, and then not just train them but change attitude and mindset, right? So a lot of folks just get caught up on training but they forget about attitude and mindset, which training helps, but there's some other kind of like nuanced components in there. So first thing, number one, control movement, control motion, control access, right? Now this might sound like a bummer, but if you're trying to get a dog into a different space, the quickest way for him to move out of the space you want him to get into is to allow him to just freely roam, allow him to just do whatever he wants, allow him to be wherever he wants, make his own decisions. So psychologically, the first component to create this takeover effect is to basically take over the freedom of choice initially. Of course he's going to get it back, or she's going to get it back, and he's going to get freedom and all that fun stuff and play and everything. But initially, for the takeover, for the change, for the transformation, for the boot camp effect, for the kind of shock and awe thing, we're looking to create a big contrast for the dog. So removing or controlling, I should say, controlling all the dog's motion, all the dog's movement, all the dog's decision making, all the dog's access to you or anything else, gigantically important. So I want you guys to really hold on to that. If you're allowing a dog to wander in your house that you're having problems with, and you're not creating the dog, and the dog is kind of just making decisions on its own, you're really going to struggle getting that mindset in the right place. Even if you teach sit and down and place and all that stuff, you can't have that motion initially. You've got to be able to like really lock the dog down. That's why there's the Laura lockdown, because of the psychological effect it has. A dog that's freewheeling and doing its own thing is in a very different space than a dog that's like, is it okay for me to walk out right now? Oh, you need me to be right here. Okay, and I get to come out when you say, and I get to move here when you say, right? You get the psychological ramifications if it's a big change. One is basically do whatever you want, and the other is do whatever I say. Big difference psychologically. Massively change the emotional content or the affection stuff that's going on with the dog, right? So if a dog comes in and has got stuff going on, which most of them do that come to see us, affection, touch, petting, play, all of that stuff is going to be off the table initially. It's all going to be off the table until the dog earns that stuff. So if you're trying to create a psychological takeover for the dog, and once again, I mean that in a positive way because I know it's strong language, but I want you to really think about the effect that playtime or affection or, petting, allowing, like access to your personal space, sitting on your lap, something like that, the message that it sends to a dog that would most likely be counterproductive to a dog that's misbehaving, being bratty, being entitled. Hopefully you can make that connection. This is number two, right? Hopefully you can make that connection and see how that would be counterproductive, how it would work against you, how it would send a mixed message to a dog that you're saying, I need you to behave. I need you to listen to me, and I need you to be respectful and polite. But I'm gonna pet the bejesus out of you. I'm going to love you up. I'm gonna play with you constantly. I'm gonna let you just come and sit in my lap or do whatever you want. You can imagine that's gonna cause some very clear signals, some very clear conversation to the dog about what positions you guys are going to play in your world of dog and human. So I want you guys to be really conscious, really cognizant of your affection, your play, your interaction, and then personal space stuff, right? And the personal space stuff goes back to, like, if a dog is not allowed to freely roam, he's not going to be in your personal space anyways. So that makes that kind of like a no-brainer, right? So one of the other things, and this would actually be pre-number one. So with the number system we just went through, it's the one right before number one, and that's setting a firm tone, right? So setting a firm tone really paves the way for you to create a dynamic of expectations from the dog of how you guys are going to exist together. And this happens before we start even, like, you know, doing any training or, you know, the affection or any of the stuff that we're also going to be cautious about. This tone setting, this initial conversation when a dog comes in, typically we see these opportunities for tone setting at the crate, thresholds, and the walk. And waiting for food, but you don't seem to get the same kind of value out of the conversation that you do with thresholds, crate, and the walk. So straight away, those three give you an opportunity, and yes, they're training. So yes, it's interwoven. They're combined. It's not like, it's not clean and like one is the other or one is not the other. But I want you guys to be highly conscious of what's setting a tone, a firm tone out of the gate, what it could do for creating and paving the road for the relationship that you want to create with your dog that you might be struggling with, right? So that firm tone, bear with me, is dog's in a crate, open the crate door, dog comes charging out or tries to come charging out, which is typical for untrained, impulse control free dogs, you know, like jazzed up dogs, really adrenalized, like, I just do what I want, autopilot dogs. You shut that crate door firmly on the dog's nose, right? Not trying to hurt the dog, but it should be a surprise and a startle, and the dog should go, whoa. If it's too soft and the dog's like, just comes barreling out, you underwhelmed him, right? So you lost that opportunity. Then I put the dog back in and I'd repeat the exercise until you get what you're looking for, which is basically you open the crate door, the dog goes, I'm gonna wait for permission to come on out. So the cool thing about the crate exercise, boy, this is already getting long. The cool thing about the crate exercise is that it not only teaches impulse control, but when that correction goes down of the crate door shutting in the dog's face, it really has a startle response that will break a lot of dogs out of this kind of like cycle, the cyclical kind of effect of like, just, I'm just going like a steam train without thinking about anything. So it'll kind of like poof, break a lot of that kind of like cyclical, like excitement stuff. So that's why it's such a powerful thing. People are like, crate to like set the tone? You betcha. Do the crate exercise right? You sometimes just the crate exercise alone like resets a dog, and they're like, I'm not even dog reactive anymore because like now I've got to pay attention, and now I realize there's rules and consequences, right? So that's the crate exercise. Super valuable. Don't overlook it. What else we talk about? Talk about thresholds. Thresholds is another place the dogs love to barrel through, and that's where you'll see that excitement, that that autopilot, that lack of impulse control, and they'll just boom, try and charge through anything that feels like it's got excitement on the other side of it. That's why thresholds and crate are such a great opportunity, as well as walk, which we'll get to, because getting out of the crate means, woohoo, we're going to do this, right? So the excitement is there, and you're looking to say, yes, it's exciting out there, but you'll wait for my permission, right? The same thing's gonna go with the thresholds. Dog tries to come barreling out of the thresholds, you should have a prong collar on the dog, and unless you've already done e-collar training, but we're kind of assuming you haven't, we'll assume that you're doing prong stuff to start off with, and that would be a nice firm pop, not a little like, hey, let me pull you back. That's like, if your dog is jamming out the threshold, there should be a boom, and the dog should go, whoa, just like the crate, right? Rules, consequences, also a startle response, also a holy mackerel, what was that? Human beings are actually asking stuff of me, and they're powerful, and they need to be listened to and respected. Okay. The psychological reset. This is where the transformation starts to go from like, I just do what I want, to, what do you think about me walking out the door? So thresholds and crate, huge opportunities to work on that state of mind, because excitement is on the other side. So you're going to get the dog's worst kind of like autopilot stuff, your big opportunity, right? Their excitement, your big opportunity. Then the walk. Of course, there's lots of other stuff, but these are like the big ones. These are the ones that jump out. My arm is falling off, so I'm going to support it with the other arm. It's hurting. Okay, so number 3, the walk. You're going to get the same response typically on walks with jazzed up dogs, you know, dogs without impulse control. You're going to get dogs that want to pull. You're going to get dogs that want to like sniff, that want to go left, right, all around, do all the stuff that they want to do. Your job is to not let that happen. Your job is to set a firm tone to where your dog actually cares, just like we're talking about the crate, cares about getting permission to come out, cares about getting permission to go through the thresholds, and your dog cares about, how do I walk on the leash, rather than just you're holding the leash and I just do whatever the heck I want. So if you've got a dog that's really jazzed up and you're on the prong collar, you should do the prong collar dance, as Jeffrey Gelman calls it, or leash pressure introduction, as I call it. And basically, that's in video form as well, and that shows how you introduce a dog to the prong so they get familiar with that sensation, and then you can de-escalate them and calm them down and teach them to look and focus on you a little bit in kind of like a more mild context, get them really comfortable with the pressure, and so they know how to shut it off. That's the first step. But then you go out on your walk, and then you start seeing what you get. And I've got a really great video that says introduction to prong collar and how we stop like massive pulling in a few minutes or something like that. Hey, Shelby. And that shows me go through the process of everything that we're talking about. The leash pressure introduction. It shows me doing like short little pops with the leash to get the dog to slow down. And then it also shows me when the dog is not getting that and the dog's too amped up, the same exact thing that I'm sharing with you guys about the crate or about the thresholds. A firmer conversation to set the tone, to get the dog to actually care about what you're asking, so the dog's brain clears out a little bit and he can actually think and process. And that's 180s with the prong, and I demo that in that video very clearly. So the 180s, which end up being kind of more powerful corrections or conversations for dogs that are just tuned out and just pulling and not caring about smaller conversations with the prong, are a great way to tune a dog in and get a much more like respectful, polite, oh, you want me to walk here, rather than just pull and do all my stuff, right? So those would be a really good place to start for you guys for a psychological takeover, for you guys that are looking to get dogs into a better space. Of course, place, command, and duration work should be definitely built into that down the line, and that down the line could be just a couple days in, as we're talking about limiting dogs' access, space, motion, and movement. So place command is going to be an awesome piece of that. Duration work on place is going to be an awesome piece of that. But this is just the initial, like, how we think about setting a tone for dogs, so we can get the very best out of them, so they're ready to learn, they're in a respectful space, and their attitude starts to turn into a different gear, a different mode, right? So I'm hoping that's helpful for you guys. Remember, 1 is set the tone, 2 is control motion, movement, and access, which is connected to number 1 in a lot of ways. But I want you to think about number 2 being that controlling motion, movement, and access is a more kind of like general, that the dog's not wandering anywhere, and that the dog is locked down. The dog is either crated or he's working. He's not doing any like, I'm just cooking around, right? And then number 3 is being really conscious of your affection, play, interaction, conversations that could be leading a dog to feel like you're just a playmate, and I don't really need to listen to you or do any of that stuff that you need, and the dog's going to stay locked in that gear. So that is the psychological takeover, kind of broken down a bit. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the comments section if you need any videos that to link to. If you're not sure about which ones are which or what might be helpful, go ahead and ask me in the comments and I'll do my best to try and link those up for you. But I'm telling you guys, like, implement this stuff and do it without guilt or like, oh, I'm being firm with my dog who's being a total knucklehead and a brat, but you actually like set some firmness into your like lifestyle with your dog and consequences for being a knucklehead, and you can make some massive changes with your dog. Of course, this is all done in a balanced, humane fashion. We're not talking about like breaking dog spirits, we're not talking about being overly harsh, but we are talking about meeting them where they're at in a fashion that helps them move forward. I hope that helps. I'll chat with you guys soon. I hope you guys are all well. And I was gonna write this out and I was like, this is gonna take 3 days to write out. So here it is. Hopefully it helps. Let me know. Talk to you guys soon. Love y'all. See ya. Bye.